What's going on, everybody? My name is C4. Welcome back to the channel. Happy 2025 NFL Draft First Round Eve to everybody out there. Quick reminder, tomorrow night we will be live streaming from pick 1 all the way to 32 here on the channel. Grab a cold one, get your salads in order, and come hang out. But today's video, a day before the draft, almost 24 hours too, I am doing a predictive mock draft. This is the mock draft that I'm going to print out and my printer doesn't work. I'm going to do it old school like the 80s. I'm going to write down on a piece of paper. And this is the mock draft that I'm going to follow. Now, not necessarily because I'm not going to be doing trades. I want to line up player to team. Because teams are going to move up and down on this board. I think like a lot of teams want to trade back this year. But I'm going to ensure that these predictions for team to player are going to be correct. And this is not just a preview of what could happen. I'm sorry. I'm about to spoil what is going to happen tomorrow night. This is going to be the first ever 32 out of 32 picks correct. I have taken so much information to come up with this. 1, team needs, player fits. 2, official visits. 3, insiders. 4, draft guides. Everything has been combined. This is going to be 100%. And we're going to start right away at number 1. Tennessee, Cam Ward. It's written in stone. I really feel like the first 4 picks right now, they're out there. And I think it's what's going to happen. I think Vegas in particular, siding with these picks, kind of makes it easy. Well, Cam Ward, Tennessee, franchise quarterback. Cleveland, I think they are one of the teams that may truly entertain allowing Travis Hunter to play both sides of the football. I think they're so desperate for talent. They're so desperate for star talent and star power and to get the attention off that quarterback situation that someone as electrifying as Travis Hunter could potentially do it. I think that's a front office that will take that big of a Hail Mary to see if it works. I think that fit could potentially make this a boomer bust selection, but I'm pulling for Travis Hunter, man. Number 3, we have the New York Giants, and I actually have the Giants, and when we get to the Jags pick, the same justification. The Giants, Abdul Carter. What does this mean for Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau? I don't know. Does it mean Kayvon Thibodeau may be traded before the end of this week? Maybe. Does it mean they figure it out? Maybe. But I think at this point in time with the Giants, you don't want to overreach for a quarterback. That's the last thing that this front office needs. If they take a swing and Shedeur Sanders ain't it, he ain't it. They're all doomed. But if you go Abdul Carter and he's as blue chip and as elite of a prospect as many think, maybe a Kayvon Thibodeau helps you as a trade piece to maybe get like a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe or something like that. Day 2, second round, third round of this draft. Like I don't think passing on quarterback at 3 means the Giants won't be able to try and attempt to get some of the secondary guys. It just means they won't get Shedeur. But Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe's attending the draft, I'm pretty sure. Tyler Shuck has got some momentum. You know, maybe Abdul Carter makes trading for one of those quarterbacks with a piece that currently exists on their defense a little more attainable. I will say, though, if they end up keeping all 3 of those guys, kind of classic Giants, but you're not going to trash, as an Eagle fan, an Abdul Carter pick, even though he's an Eagles super fan and he'll never truly love you guys the way he loves us. Very annoying to have him come within the division. Number 4, we have Will Campbell going to the Patriots. This seems like a lock at this point, and this is just prospect fatigue coming full circle. At the beginning of the draft process, Will Campbell to the Patriots made a lot of sense. And then everyone kind of looked and like, well, he got T-Rex arms. Is he a guard? Is he a tackle? I think with Abdul Carter off the board, this is just everything coming full circle at the end. It's like, oh, Patriots just got to go with the best tackle they think's on the board. The best tackle, as far as tape is concerned, over the last couple of years in college football has been Will Campbell, and protecting Drake May at number 4, assuming they can't trade back. I certainly think they will be one of the teams that try to trade back. That's priority numero uno. Jacksonville, very similarly to the New York Giants, just go best player available and figure it out later. That is why I think with the growing popularity of this pick, Vegas likes it. It makes sense. Now, Jags don't have top 30 visits coming from that Rams pipeline, so you do need to kind of blind pick there as far as who they're truly interested in. Ashton Denty to the Jags. I think if you're Jacksonville, you were in that purgatory round where, like, I don't know if there's a team that's going to trade up for a quarterback. I don't know if there's a team that wants to trade up for a Membu or a Jalen Walker or a Mason Graham. And Mason Graham's kind of been the plug-and-play pick for the Jags, but it does feel like we're like Will Campbell, prospect fatigue, but it kind of had a way of like, oh, let's just go with Will Campbell. That's also kicked in for Mason Graham, but for Mason Graham, it's just kind of like, is he really just like maybe just like a high floor, questionable ceiling player? Which is still, that's a first-round pick. He has first-round traits, but like, is he a finished product? Is Mason Graham what you're getting right now? Which is a guy that's probably closer to a pick that's within 8 to 15 than it is a guy that you're slam dunking within the top 5 of the draft. Where you look at Ashton Genty, undeniable, that guy's going to be a stud. They're like, barring an injury, Ashton Genty is going to be, at minimum, a top 8 running back in the NFL, maybe even the best running back in the NFL by the end of that rookie contract. And if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, are you really that married to ETN? ETN is kind of, over the last couple years, just been a guy. It's not a bad thing. He's not a bad player. He's not a bad running back. He's a starting running back, but is he a star running back? Is he a game-changing running back? And those questions need to be answered sooner or later, because you're going to pay him. You got to give him a big contract extension, faux pas at that running back position. Is that what the new general manager is going to want to do? Or you going to want to get cost-controlled 5 years of elite running back play in Ashton Genty? Is that the missing piece? It may be hard to understand, like, oh yeah, as a running back, what we need to really hit that kind of the reset button on Trevor Lawrence. Maybe it is. Maybe having a strong run game and committing to run the ball first will have Trevor Lawrence less likely into, like, he got to throw it 35 times and let's just watch him fall apart in the fourth quarter of games and make terrible decisions. How about we just control the clock? How about we control the game? How about we bring in a running back? And now you're going to probably need to supplement that offensive line a little bit. I think that my consistent thing that I've said about teams that need to draft Ashton Genty, he's a luxury pick. You need to, everyone wants to be, oh, the next Saquon Barkley, look what he did to the Eagles. We want that. Well, it works because we have a great offensive line. We were like a running back away. Are the Jags a running back away? Probably not, but I think the justification of this pick at 5 in purgatory, just strictly get the best football player available, that means Genty to the Jags. Number 6 for Vegas. I'm going to be honest, when I first kind of made this mock draft, I had going Mason Graham, which is a little bit counter right now if you're looking at the Vegas odds, but looking around, seems like Mason Graham and Christian Wilkins, would that pairing work? They're kind of like the same role. So that's kind of how you're feeling about it. Membu, who is, you know, if you play FIFA and Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi retire, a new player gets generated in like the free agency pool. That's them. It's going to be them. Jason Peters just retired. And if that exists, we want to apply that to football. Membu is the regen of Jason Peters. Athletically, like, identical. Now, long way to go. Jason Peters might be a first ballot Hall of Famer. If not, he's a lock for the Hall of Fame at some point. And to say for Membu, who is just a freak of nature athlete with some pretty good tape. You know, he's not 6'6" with like an 86 wingspan to be like a Joe Alt can't miss type player. But when you have that big of an athlete, when you look at the Vegas Raiders offensive line, I think Membu walks into that starting right tackle spot. You got Glaze, who is maybe a nice, you know, maybe still has some more upside. Maybe he's a swing tackle. Maybe he's a guy that you can challenge inside a guard. But I don't think because you have Delmar Glaze at right tackle that you're going to go, no, we just can't get Membu, even if he's the best player. You build the trenches. It feels like that's a move that front office wants to do, to kind of change the guard. And I imagine Tom Brady's like, hey, let's protect the quarterback. We're going to commit to Geno Smith. Let's give him the best chance. Membu. See, I think that's the Vegas favorite pick right now as well. And that's where we're going to land. For the Jets, with Aaron Glenn, a defensive head coach, popular pick seems to be Tyler Warren. I'm going to go against the grain and have them get Mason Graham, D lineman out of Michigan. I think a team that would value a player like that has a very high floor, would be the Jets, because you take a guy with a very high floor that could absolutely still be one of those guys that it is simply prospect fatigue. He's a really good player. All these other teams are overthinking it. But to take him and then you pair him with Quinnen Williams, you pair him with a defensive-minded head coach, I think that'd be a really, really nice landing spot. And I almost feel like Aaron Glenn is like, we know this Jets defense can be really good. And there's still a lot of those key pieces from the last time the Jets defense were really good. So trying to get them back on the same page, play good defensive football, and hopefully Justin Fields can figure it out on offense. I think Mason Graham might be the best piece at 7 for them to go and do it. But I think for these selections, these picks honestly could flip, and I wouldn't be shocked. Say the Raiders go Graham, and then at 7, Membu's the selection to come in and play tackle. Him and Fashanu long-term for the Jets would be awesome, but we're going to have Graham go at 7. Number 8, kind of a consensus pick right now, is Jalen Walker to the Carolina Panthers. They need edge rush help, and it seems like they are big fans of Jalen Walker. New Orleans at number 9. There's another one where it's like a little bit of momentum around it. They've shown interest during the pre-draft. And then is Mykel Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia. I don't think I would personally make this move, but it seems like a lot of people are kind of siding with it. And if the information that's coming out of the Saints camp from this draft process is not a smokescreen, they're interested in the traits and upside of Kyle Williams. I think going after a pass rusher is not a bad decision for the New Orleans Saints. However, Shedeur could make some sense. You could go Tyler Warren if you really wanted to. You could go T-Mac. I think the board at 9, if this is kind of how it falls for the Saints, I think a lot of fans would be pissed off if they go Kyle Williams. But Georgia Bulldog, high upside edge rusher, those tend to work out in the NFL. And Jalen Walker and Kyle Williams absolutely could be the next two on that list. Number 10, we have the Chicago Bears. I'm going to have them select Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas. I think prioritizing the offensive line in free agency was apparent, and I think that will carry over into the draft. I've seen Tyler Warren's been a popular pick, but I don't think with the contract Cole Kmet got, you really want to, you'd have to use Tyler Warren as a hybrid, which I think they could. But I would look at that left tackle spot. How much do I like Braxton Jones? Is Braxton Jones, Kelvin Banks? They're probably pretty close right now. Day one as a rookie, Banks and Jones could compete. And Jones' contract's coming up. He can't stay healthy. Are you going to want to pay Braxton Jones 15, 16, 17 mil a year? Are you going to let him walk? And Kelvin Banks is going to be the future at that tackle position on that offensive line. Banks is an athletic tackle, maybe not Sewell athletic, but I think that could be stylistically a piece that Ben Johnson wants to add on the offensive line. And there's a lot of hype right now with that being a potential landing spot. I think that's a safe pick because at the end of the day, no matter what resources get spent, protecting Caleb Williams needs to be priority number 1 for the Bears. San Francisco at 11, I would hate this pick, but they've showed a lot of interest. Some of the insiders have it happening. I want them to fall to my Eagles, but Walter Nolan is a special talent. From an interior pass rush, you look at the 49ers, you can make an argument that D tackle spot and an interior guy is their biggest need going. It's either that or offensive line. They got to build in the trenches. And I think Walter Nolan's a special talent. I think he goes top 15. I think for all the Eagle fans watching this that were hoping there was some way in this video Walter Nolan would follow the Eagles, they're going to have to be aggressive and trade up. That Philly has also showed interest in Walter Nolan. I think he'd be disgusting next to Jalen Carter. But I think this would be one of those ones where we're just pissed off because he goes to the Niners. Obviously, that little bit of rivalry between the Eagles and Niners. I hate that. But that's because it's good. I would hate that pick, which means it's good for the 49ers. Dallas at number 12. I am going to have them select Tedaira McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. I think Dallas, they brought him in for a visit. They clearly have been sniffing around some of the top wideouts. You look at the Dallas Cowboys depth chart right now. I think getting a secondary option that's not CeeDee Lamb is a priority. I think T-Mac is a complement to what they currently have at wide receiver. He's 6'5", every bit, 215, can win jump balls, underrated yak ability. And I think continuing to try to put and maximize the contract of Dak Prescott. They want to justify paying him that amount of money. They would do that. You got to get him more weapons. You got to get Dak back to where he's getting, even if it's garbage time numbers. You need Dak to be getting 45, 100 yards, 35 total touchdowns. And I don't know if they have the receiving core right now, the skill positions to really facilitate that. But going out and getting arguably the best wide receiver in the class, depending on how you view Travis Hunter, I think that would be a wise pick at 12. And I think debatably, that's a value pick with T-Mac falling down to 12. We have Miami at 13. I had this in my kind of visits-only mock draft. I think there's a lot of hype around it, and I think that this is absolutely a Dolphin pick. Nick Amenwori, the safety from South Carolina. Safety is a need for Miami, but we know the Dolphins are all about speed. They want speed. They want athletes, and you can make a case that Nick Amenwori is the athlete of all athletes in this year's class. It's surely between him and Shamar Stewart, which I think both could potentially be in play for Miami. I think Tyler Warren could be a potentially interesting fit. But ultimately, with safety being a big need, with how potentially, I don't know, wild card would be the right way? Like how you could utilize Amenwori across the defense. He might not even just strictly be a safety. He could be safety, he could be a nickel, he could be a sub-linebacker. I think there's a lot of different ways. If you have a creative plan to utilize him, that the athleticism is just a plus. And I think that would be a on-brand selection for Miami at 13. 14, every mock draft I've had has had the Colts go tight end, and this is no different. Now, if they make a trade right now, the smokescreen could be potentially Philadelphia Eagles trading away Dallas Goedert to the Colts. That could change this, but until that happens, Tyler Warren still be on the board at 14 is a dream selection for Indianapolis. 15, we have the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to have them select, and this is kind of, they showed interest, defensive-minded head coach, Jahad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. Now, this is not an unpopular pick. I probably had that a couple times in mock drafts just for how much of a utility player Jahad Campbell can be as an off-ball linebacker, as a pass rusher, as a blitzer. I compare him a little bit to what Zach Bond did for my Philadelphia Eagles, and that was arguably Defensive Player of the Year, caliber last season. And if that is the ceiling of a Jahad Campbell, you ain't gonna complain about that. And I think you could just as easily view this as an edge rusher and not put that linebacker tag on him. It'd be an interesting landing spot. So we have the Arizona Cardinals at 16, and I'm going to have them select Shamar Stewart, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. This is a team with Jonathan Gannon, comes from Philadelphia. Who would be, if the Eagles were sitting at 16, looking at their needs, who would the Eagles select? And you can make a very strong argument that that identity, what we look for, especially from a defensive side of the ball, Shamar Stewart would be the guy. I think Shamar Stewart, for how versatile he could be in this front for Jonathan Gannon, I think the fact that he is at 266, 290, but with his athleticism, you can have him edge rush. You could have him line up over the guards. I think there's a lot of versatility there. I think you could, things don't work out with Darius Robinson, which that was still kind of a weird pick. Like similar versatility with Shamar Stewart. That's the type of player that they're kind of looking for. Another swing at it with a guy that is truly a generational athlete. Could certainly go alongside very nicely with Josh Sweat in improving that Arizona Cardinals pass rush. Cincinnati at 17. This is kind of going up. I'm going to have to select Derek Harmon, the D lineman from Oregon. Looking at where the Bengals need to go. Big question mark with the future of Trey Hendrickson. But kind of looking at like Mike Green, I feel like they're not going to be on board. When you look at the top edge rushers, Mike Green and James Pierce have their red flags. I don't know. They haven't shown any interest in Ezra Raku in the process. So it's like, well, they got to improve the defense. This has to be a defensive pick. You could go Malachi Starks here, which might be a little rich. I don't know if they want to give up on Geno Stone just yet, even though very disappointing last season. So it's like, all right, well, let's look it out. And then you look at the D-line. You look at the guys that could go in the first round. It's like, yeah, Kenneth Grant, who's more of a nose tackle, where someone like Harmon is kind of the hybrid. He's a jack of all trades. He was a guy that was like a 330-pound nose, dropped down to like 310. If he can clean up the missed tackles, you can make an argument for the D lineman in this class. He could be the most well-rounded, and I think that ends up being a safe, affordable defensive starter for the Bengals, which with how they've spent and invested their money on the offensive side of the ball, that's kind of what you got to prioritize. Seattle up next. The last mock draft, I have them going Jalen Milroe. Again, I didn't get too much crap because I said it was just based off of visits. I'm not going to have that be the case here. And at number 18, I think this is a perfect fit. I don't know what, from an outside perspective, I feel like McDonald doesn't like Tariq Woolen. I feel like he wants to address corner, and what better coming from Michigan than getting the 5-star corner from Michigan that's fallen down draft boards. Oh, he's not athletic enough. I honestly couldn't give two shits. He's not a bad athlete. He might not be an elite athlete. He is an outstanding football player. He is going to be a very good corner in the NFL. Again, I get maybe the slight fall, because if I want to draft and invest heavily in a corner, and a lot of these teams so far haven't been desperate for corner, hasn't been like they have to go corner. So if he's going to fall just a little bit because other teams are going different needs because he's not a freak athlete, just falls right into the lap to Seattle. I think Mike McDonald absolutely be like, oh, cool. Yeah, I remember this guy. Freak, you're going to let him fall to me here? Good. I'll take him right away, not even think twice. Number 19, we have Tampa Bay. This is a pick that, like, I don't love making. Pause. But I'm going to go Matthew Golden at wide receiver. I think this is kind of their board fell apart a little bit. And it's like they've done a lot of homework on wide receivers. More than I would have thought for top 30 visits. And again, could all be smoke screens. I could be taking the bait. But Chris Godwin, when's he going to be ready? Is he going to miss half the season next year? Is he going to be ready for training camp? Pretty brutal injury. And I say that it's casual, but Chris Godwin was like my absolute steal in fantasy football last year. I was like, he's going to be good. And he was tearing up. And then, like, in garbage time when the game was over, I still can't. I don't even want to bring it up. But his health is a concern, even though they did the right thing by paying him ahead of time. If he's not back, at least he might be kind of ready. But if he's not back up to 100% till like week 5, week 6, you're going to need more than that. You got Mike Evans, who's awesome, legend, one of my favorite players in the league. But, like, his best football is behind him. He could be one of those guys that plays for another year or two. But, like, there's no long-term. You can't look at that Bucs wide receiver and be like, here's our long-term guy. Golden, who stylistically has 4.2 speed. So that's not what Chris Godwin has. Chris Godwin stays in the slot. Mike Evans, your jump ball guy. Gives you a little bit more, like, who's Palmer is probably like their speedster right now. I think Golden makes a lot of sense for the fact that They've shown a lot of interest at wide receiver. Stylistically, he's a different type. Maybe feels a little bit like a luxury pick. Maybe they have bigger needs than wide receiver, but that is BPA on their board. I don't think I'd be too upset with that. Denver at number 20. Another player that I talked about in my Visits mock draft. I'm going to go Luther Burden, wide receiver from Mizzou. I think word on the street is like Denver, and this might be hard passing up on Colson Loveland, but I feel like Denver is at a spot where offensively, Sean Payton needs his gadget guy. Doesn't have, like, it's almost like he needs it. That's something that he's always had. Does he have, like, can Marvin Mims develop into that guy? You know, Courtland Sutton's not going to be that guy. The running back room has major question marks. Half my mock drafts have had them going to Marion Hampton. But I think Luther Burden can be that guy. I think Luther Burden can be that utility guy. And I think Luther Burden, is he a top 20 player in this class? Maybe not. Another one of these guys that's going on prospect fatigue. Didn't have his greatest year at Mizzou. If this was 2 years ago, getting him at 20 would feel like an absolute steal. But I think for how skill position players get utilized in Denver, Luther Burden has a lot more value and a lot more versatility to this team in comparison to other teams in this range. I think that'd be an excellent fit. And another big-time weapon for Bo Nix in year 2 of that era. Pittsburgh at 21. I'm buying the hype that Shedeur Sanders is going to fall. Now, maybe they'll trade up and get him, but I think this is a landing spot. Good for him. I'd be pulling for him. I've told this story back when I was like, oh, who's going to be my football team? It did come down. I've been very public to either the Steelers and the Eagles. Because my favorite pound-for-pound player at that time when I was like again, I'm Canadian. None of my family members watch football. My brother liked the Patriots, I guess. But I was like, I got to pick a team. My favorite overall player was Jerome Bettis. My second favorite player was Brian Dawkins. Pittsburgh Steelers had all the Super Bowls. Kind of felt like that was a little fair weather. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go with the Eagles here. But I was very close to repping the gold and black. Black and yellow. Black and yellow, black and yellow. I did not. I decided not to. But I've always kind of had a soft spot. I always like in neutral situations. Let's go Steelers, man. And they deserve a quarterback. Mike Tomlin deserves a quarterback. And the Steelers are never shitty enough to get like a top 5 pick to go get one. So to have Shedeur Sanders fall in their lap, I think Tomlin can handle that situation. I think it's a great landing spot with DK Metcalf, with George Pickens. I think it goes to a terrific environment. I think that's the best landing spot right now for a Shedeur Sanders. I'd love to see that come draft day. We have pick number 22. We're going to have Colson Loveland go to the Chargers. Now, they didn't bring him in a visit. Harbaugh probably doesn't need a visit. I assume all the top Michigan guys, Harbaugh's a pretty good vibe on. I think it'd be one of the two. I think either Loveland or Kenneth Grant will be the selection here for the Chargers. And we thought that was going to be easy last year, right? We thought that Blake Corum, the running back, perfect fit. And like Harbaugh kept passing on him. And kept passing on some of his Michigan guys last year. I don't think he'll do that this year. I think Colson Loveland will be the guy. Green Bay at number 23. I'm going to go with a wide receiver they showed interest in. That is Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Get another weapon there for Jordan Love. And Green Bay Packer fans are screaming from the heavens that they finally drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Minnesota at 24. I'm going to have them go Kenneth Grant, the nose tackle from Michigan. Kind of feels like he's a high floor, potentially high ceiling player. But I think he adds a dimension to that defensive line that they don't currently have a lot of confidence in. And this is a Vikings team that needs pro-ready guys. Needs guys that can, pick up and contribute to help them get over the hump and put it all together next season with that rookie quarterback. And I think Kenneth Grant, being how pro-ready as he is a great landing spot. Number 25 for Houston. I would say originally, this was one that I've kind of flip-flopped. I think Josh Simmons might be the most value pick, but they did not bring him in for a visit. I think with the injury to Simmons, you need to do that extra homework. I think Greg Zabel's versatility is interesting, but I think for versatility being the word, the guy that I would trust because of he was on the national champions, Donovan Jackson would make a lot of sense. I think this has to be offensive line. The offensive line for Houston was dog shit last year, and then they've moved a lot of pieces. Kenyon Green and my Eagles, we don't know where we're getting. We're going to try to save. That wasn't a huge loss, but trading away Laramie Tunsil was shocking and kind of tipped their hand like, well, their offensive line was terrible last year, and it's even worse right now. So go and get someone like Donovan Jackson who could hit at both tackle and or guard. I think you start him out at guard, but he absolutely could be like in training camp, be like, well, let's just see if he can get by at tackle. He's a little bit shorter, but his arm length kind of compensates for that a little bit. I like the versatility. I like the fact that he could wear a couple different hats on that Houston offensive line, which makes it a little less risky. Number 26, I'm going to have the Rams go Jahdae Barron, who I think is a great scheme fit for their defense. and kind of a BPA for a team that just rarely has first-round picks. They hit on their first-round picks when they had him. Jarrett Verse last year was an absolute slam dunk, and I think Barron very schematically slots right in as a starter day one for that Rams defense. Baltimore at 27. I'm going to have them select Donovan Ezuraku, edge rusher from Boston College. This was one of those ones I do love to look at the pro day visits, or the visits and like the pro days and stuff like that, and who they're bringing in for private workouts. Didn't see a lot of connections here, but I think for the Baltimore Ravens, an athletic edge rusher. I don't think Mike Green is going to, after the whole, people were saying like Ray Rice, they'll never draft those type of players. I think Mike Green is going to fall in this year's draft. Some people like Dane Brugler, awesome draft guy. The Beast, check it out, has him as like a top 10 player. I think he's going to fall. I think there's going to be a little bit of free fall. So I think if Baltimore is like, no, we don't like that. He's not, checking the red flags. James Pierce has some red flags. You know who doesn't? And I think he's in the same discussion. That is Ezuraku, which makes me a little frustrated as an Eagle fan because I'd love him at pick 32. But that's what the Ravens do. They take guys that you really want. Detroit at 28. A lot of hype around this selection potentially. He's Maxwell Hairston, who is reportedly going to be in attendance for the draft, which doesn't mean they're going to be a lock for the first round, but it makes you consider like, okay, maybe that's the league tilting their hand a little bit of showing who could go there. Now they have, like Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart might attend, which kind of throws a wrench into how the rest of my mock draft closes out here. But Hairston, 4.28 speed, SEC proven corner, and Detroit can use all the secondary help that they can possibly get, especially guys that can play and start on the outside. And with the edge rushers being a huge need is Mike Green and James Pierce guys that you feel confident are going to buy into the Dan Campbell stuff. If you have any worry about that, go with your next secondary option, which is Hairston, a player that they've shown a lot of interest in during this draft process. We have the Commanders at 27, another player that they've shown a lot of interest. I would consider Josh Simmons, but I'm going to have them select Josh Connerly, the tackle from Oregon. I think when you look at the offensive line for the Commanders, let's start locking in some young guys that can grow and develop with Jaden Daniels. They've done some investing, obviously going out and getting Laramie Tunsil. How would we just seal the deal on the other side? And getting in Josh Connerly, who has first-round traits at tackle. They've showed a lot of interest. This would not be considered a reach whatsoever, and just build those trenches up a little bit. I think when you look at secondary needs for the Commanders, the value that is available right now, you probably aren't in love with it. So why not go with a safe pick in the trenches in Connerly? Number 29 into 30. We have the Buffalo Bills, and this is kind of going off the visits and who they're showing interest in. I'm going to select Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss. I think, they kind of cut their losses on Kyer Elam. They brought in Trey White. Thinking they brought in Trey White, that's kind of showing that they're a little bit desperate right now to kind of fill out that secondary. Trey White's on a one-year rental. I think Amos has a lot of, maybe doesn't have like first round, tick that box of athleticism, high raz, runs a 4.2 or anything like that. But I think he has first round tape for a corner, late first round, early second round. I have him as a top 40 player in this year's class. And I've been doing and watching a little bit of film ever since Philadelphia had him in for a visit. And there's a lot to like. And I think that would translate well to what you want in a Sean McDermott defense. And maybe perceived a little bit against consensus as a reach. But I think the Bills really like him. And if he's still on the board at 30 and the board kind of shakes up this way, go with the guy that they've showed a lot of interest in. I don't want to catch any heat for this. Kansas City, I think I'd like Josh Simmons. I think after that Super Bowl, how everything kind of broke down and they could not protect Patty Mahomes, take the swing on Josh Simmons. Maybe he's your guy. I think Gray Zabel could be an Andy Reid pick, small school player. Could go Tyler Booker, continue to reaffirm those trenches. However, if Mike Green goes in the first round, I think a team like Kansas City, I'm not saying that the Chiefs have had, feels like the last couple of years, Chiefs have been getting guys that have some issues. I don't want to be unfair to those fans, but Mike Green isn't on field. He is a first-round player. He's a first-round edge rusher, but it's going to take a franchise that takes swings on guys with red flags to draft him. And I think over the last couple of years, that would be Kansas City. And I think that this could end up being a nightmare scenario because if nothing ever happens from all of the red flags, which you guys can go Google what they are, and he never gets suspended, he just plays. That is very annoying because arguably he's in the discussion probably for the second best edge rusher in this class. I think Abdul Carter is universally number one, but I think there's an open competition for number two. And with the kind of film that Mike Green put up last year at Marshall, small school of level of competition, whatever or not, there is a lot to like about his game. He absolutely could be a double-digit sack getter in the NFL. And all it's going to take is a team like that, like Kansas City, that's comfortable taking these guys. And honestly, it almost feels like they'll take bad players. As long as there's no suspensions and you're not going to be on the sidelines, you're going to be available as a rookie, which absolutely could be the case for Mike Green. Kansas City looks at good players. You're a good player first. Good person could be second. And that could end up being a huge deal for Kansas City. And then I'm going to finish up with old Malachi Starks falling to my Philadelphia Eagles at pick 32. As much as a Canadian and patriotism, I'd hate Sidney Brown to get screwed out of a easy path to starting on the team next year. You get all the check marks. You know, high pedigree, Georgia Bulldogs. It's a classic, oh my God, how'd he fall to the Eagles? Howie Roseman type pick. We did our homework on him late. Safety is a position we've been studying players. You know, we looked at both safeties from Penn State on top of a couple other dudes as well. But Malachi Starks being the top there, that is a classic Howie Roseman pick, and I think it totally happened. So there you go, fellas. That is my predictive mock draft for the 2025 NFL Draft. Take a screenshot. This is a spoiler. This is how it's going to happen. Maybe there'll be some trades, but player to team, these are going to be all 32 picks. I guarantee it. Love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. Who do you think your favorite team is going to draft? Let me know in the comments. We'll see if you're right when all is said and done. Make sure you hang out tomorrow night live on the channel. We're going to be streaming from probably about half hour before the draft starts, and maybe half hour after the draft ends, reacting to all that stuff. So make sure, if you're around, you want to come hang out. If it is your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. We will be back reacting to all draft content all weekend long. Philadelphia Eagles stuff as well. Check out my second channel, More C4. That's going to be much more Philadelphia Eagles specific reactions. And that'll do it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, with your boy C4 saying peace. I love you. Have a good one.